All right, so first I just want to say hello and welcome to the presentation on how soft skills gained during study abroad are valued in the workplace. My name is Andrea Morse, and I'm the Interim Assistant Director of Study Abroad at UW-Stout. We have some fantastic employers with us this evening who I will be introducing in just a moment, but we are collaborating on this session with the Career Services Office. Katie, do you want to introduce yourself?
You bet. My name is Katie Hauge. I'm the Employer Relations Manager with Career Services at UW-Stout. So I work really closely. I've worked with a handful of our panelists here tonight, helping them with their recruitment strategies, getting them engaged with students on campus, and just making sure that they have the talent that they need.
Great. Well, thank you. So I just want to go through the session agenda. We're going to do, like I said, some introductions. I'm going to give a little presentation context, and then we'll go into the questions for the employer panel, which is really the meat and potatoes for tonight, and then take questions from students, and then we'll do a brief wrap up with pre and post study abroad career prep. So for introductions, first we have Jeff Asproth, who is a supply chain manager with 3M. For the past 21 years, Jeff has worked at 3M in various divisions such as commercial graphics, medical and medical surgical, infection prevention, personal care, industrial adhesives and tapes, and the medical solutions division. And he has worked in both the St. Paul tape plant and the Brookings, South Dakota plant. While working in these divisions, he has filled several roles in a variety of supply chain management positions. Jeff is the University Recruiting Team Lead at UW-Stout and serves on the Supply Chain Program Advisory Board. He also serves as a student mentor and has received the Corporate and Division Pyramid of Excellence Award and is a 3-time Corporate Supply Chain Diamond Achievement Awardee. Next, we have Brett Morse. If you notice a similar last name, Brett's actually my brother. He is a professional engineer at Toltz King Duval and Anderson, otherwise known as TKDA, practicing in the field of civil and structural engineering. He has been with TKDA for the past 27 years. His expertise is in the vertical construction field, where he designs building facilities for clients such as Metro Transit, Hennepin County, 3M, BNSF, University of Minnesota, Xcel Energy, and Minnesota State Fair, to just name a few. His passion is remodeling of historic buildings and structures, along with the mentoring of our future generation of engineers through various STEM programs. Since 1992, he has been a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers, and since 1996 has been a licensed professional engineer in the state of Minnesota. Until 2013, he was designated as the Government Market Manager for the Facilities Engineering Division, and in 2018 began his position as Board Officer of American Council of Engineering Companies of Minnesota. Brett has a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from North Dakota State University. Next, we have Garth Peterson, and he is Area Vice President for Ideas. In his role as Area Vice President at Ideas, Garth leads the Americas Sales Organization, helping hoteliers drive profitability through better revenue performance. Garth is a recognized leader in revenue management in the hospitality industry. He currently serves on the Americas Leadership Board of Hospitality, Sales, and Marketing Association International, and has previously served on HSMAI's Revenue Management Advisory Board. He is an accredited certified revenue management executive, and in 2012, Garth was recognized as one of HSMAI's top 25 most extraordinary minds in sales, marketing, and revenue management. He has a bachelor's degree in hospitality and tourism management from the University of Wisconsin-Stout, and he is a study abroad alumni of the Wisconsin and Scotland program. And we have Abby Vandenberg, who is a college recruiter with Heartland Business Services and has worked in the human resources field for 5 years. As a college recruiter, Abby has a passion for working with students and helping them develop professionally, whether that be through on-campus events and workshops or through internship opportunities. She has a degree in business administration, emphasizing in human resources management from the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. Now with that, I just want to give a little bit of a context for the presentation. And for the students attending this evening, you may have heard our office talk about the importance of soft skills, especially if you've heard us come in to your classroom and give any classroom presentations. We talk about the importance of soft skills. But what exactly are they? Some examples of soft skills are listed here on the screen, such as communication, problem solving, and teamwork. This evening, we wanted to bring in employers who can speak directly with you about the importance they place on hiring a globally competent workforce. A report from our professional organization called NAFSA, the Association of International Educators, found that 85% of firms will place greater emphasis on international competence among management and employees over the next 10 years. In other words, the report found the skills developed during study abroad are highly valued by employers and were listed in more than 31 million job postings in 2019. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to go into the questions we have for employers. And the first question I want to ask is for all of the panelists. When you are planning to recruit for an industry-specific position, what soft skills do you want candidates to possess and why? And let's see, should we start? I'm going to start on the right-hand side here. I have Jeff. Would you like to start that off? Or anyone really quick?
I can start. I think, the list that you had there, we're really looking for all of them. I do put, there's definitely a high value in terms of communication, especially when you're working with people from international locations with different backgrounds, different perspectives. Obviously, I think even in the United States, if you look at, whether you grow up rural or, in a city type setting, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, we all have different backgrounds, different perspectives. And, when you're working with different varying people, it brings a lot of benefit to an organization, but you really need to communicate if you're going to get things done. So, in any given month, even, I've probably been in touch with at least a dozen different countries around the world, basically in every region of the world. And you really got to be able to communicate with everyone.
Andrea, you're on mute. So early in the program, I get to say that.
With a water gun, that one. Garth, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. I will add to that. I mean, he's just right. All those skills are important, but I'm going to put a shade difference on it and say a keen sense of self-awareness would go a long ways. Kind of check yourself, check your ego. And when you're looking at a college student in particular, I'd say not necessarily you have a competency in all those skills, but you might have an aptitude for competency in those skills. If you're interviewing or talking to potential employers, think about the words you use, the way that you communicate, and the way that you express any experience, whether it's an employer experience or a student organization experience or friend experience, that might scratch at some of those soft skills that Andrea had on the screen. To be able to articulate some sense of those in an interview or in a professional conversation would, I think, go a long ways.
Great, thank you. And Brett?
Yeah, I think when a lot of people think about engineers, they may think of an engineer sitting at a desk and pumping out calculations, the math and science background, but really it's we're a people profession, and we're looking for that well-rounded person, that well-rounded education, communication skills, like Jeff had talked about, being able to lead a team. In my particular case, it's not so much the international realm, but it's more on one day I may be leading a discussion with a CEO of a company, and then the next day I may be out on a construction site working with people that are tying up rebar, steel workers, and bricklayers. So a lot of times it depends too on who your audience is, but we're really looking for people that can lead teams, whether it's a small team or a big team, and looking for those communication skills, interviewing skills, and those items. So, yep.
Great, thank you.
So Andrew, I thought that was really interesting. Jeff and Brett had very different examples of communication skills there. Jeff talked about going across many international boaters in the span of a week, talking to a lot of different cultures. And Brett talked about kind of a socioeconomic differentiator, right? Talking to a CEO of a company, multi-million-dollar, highly compensated professional, and then working with skilled labor, masons, brick, steel. That's a very different communication style and skill set.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out, Garth. And Abby, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, awesome. I mean, off of what Garth said, my biggest thing that I look for is communication skills. Being an IT company, our engineers work very closely with their customers, and IT is a foreign language all on its own for a lot of people. They don't know the IT lingo, so I think communication as far as our engineers being able to kind of break down the IT lingo, making it understandable across all levels is a really important skill to have, along with problem solving and teamwork. I mean, all of the skills, all the soft skills that you listed really, but communication and teamwork for sure.
Yeah, Abby, that reminds me, in my position, we manage a website, and going to conferences, 7 years ago to learn about how to manage the website, the IT lingo was way over my head. And then some changes were made and they're able to kind of bring it down to my level. And so having those that kind of communication skill was so helpful. So I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
One point I'd like to add too, I think as a recruiter as well, I think it's almost a given that you have the technical skills of the major that you're in, right? So the expectation is you have good grades, you technically understand your major, and a lot of times it's those soft skills that wind up setting you apart in an interview, and building confidence with a recruiter to say, yeah, I believe this person can lead teams, can communicate effectively with all ranges of people, whether it be international or different levels of an organization. So a lot of times those soft skills set you apart.
Great, thank you. All right, for our next question, this one is specifically for Brett and Jeff. Why should a student who is planning to work in the STEM field possess soft skills? And could you please provide some examples?
Go ahead, Jeff, if you'd like.
I'll keep going back to communication, and I'll give you, kind of my perspective as well. So, I mean, I actually did write a list, it just literally for me this last month, it's been Ireland, Germany, Mexico, Korea, Singapore, China, Poland, Brazil, Australia, UK, Switzerland, and I already mentioned. Those are the countries that I've worked with just this month. In January. So, again, everyone's got a different background. There are some countries where you may ask a question and you get the answer that says yes back. Yes means they understood your question, not that they're agreeing with your question. So, I mean, you do have to, it does take time to just understand culturally how people are different. There are some countries I work with where they never want to tell you no. And so, they don't want to provide bad news. So again, it's, soft skills are important. I'm in a STEM field. Communication's extremely important, especially as you're working through teams that are generally cross-functional. So it's not just teams where it's, for me, all supply chain. It's really everyone from packaging to engineering to the business side, and everyone. So, gaining common ground, common understanding, extremely important.
Yep. I think I would take a look at my own career. I'm surprised a little bit at what I do today versus what I did 25 years ago. Coming out of school, it was more of a technical part of the job where I was doing design for steel and concrete and really working on the technical side of it. But as I take a look at my career today, I do almost more writing and managing and working with people and client contact and client relationship than I do on the technical side. So it's a very different perspective. It's not something that I expected. I just kind of went down that road, went down that path, but it is very, very different than what I expected. And it is working with people. It's a lot of everyone on this call today. Engineering is a people person type work. Everything we do is, in my industry at least, is creating industry and improving our infrastructure out there, whether it's highways, transportation, vertical construction, water, wastewater. It's things that we need every day, and you definitely need a full, broad team to do that. And communication, management skills, being able to lead those teams are huge. And again, I kind of go back to whether you're working with an internal team inside your firm, or maybe you're interviewing for a project in front of the state board, or whether you're working with a client. They are very similar skills, but they are different. So, yeah.
That's really great. Really good in insight into those who are in the STEM fields. And I do want to mention for the students that are here with us that we have study abroad programs for all majors. So if you are in plastics engineering, mechanical engineering, we have programs for you. And there's some programs where you can study specifically engineering, for example, in Spain, and you can get courses in English and take engineering courses, and then learn your soft skills all at the same time. So there's programs for everyone. Thank you for that insight there. Although knowing a foreign language may not be a requirement to work with your company, are there any opportunities or instances when knowing a foreign language has been or would be beneficial? Let's see. Do you want to go, Abby? Do you want to respond to this one?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I can. So at Heartland Business Systems, knowing a foreign language is not a requirement. Just for our company right now, we're only located throughout the Midwest. So, you know, the majority of our customers, that's not really an issue for us at this point. But I will say that knowing a foreign language, I mean, it's something that they start teaching you in high school, right? So a lot of us have taken those courses. It's always an extra skill to have, even though it's not a requirement. Situations where it could come up is, I guess, in a customer facing role within our organization, if you need to have a foreign language to communicate with a customer.
All right, thank you.
Andrew, I was thinking about this question, and I'm going to turn that corner over for a second and say, there is a foreign language requirement. Depends on who you are, but the language requirement in our company is English. But we don't hire exclusively native English speakers. So I've got Germans, Dutch, I've got Korean, Indian, where a lot of their language requirements is in fact English as a second language. And so just kind of looking at that different perspective, I thought it was interesting the way the question was, but it's always through your own lens, and some of the soft skills we're talking about is taking your ego out of it and think empathetically about the other person and what is that requirement for them and how is it applied kind of differently based on your own circumstances.
Yeah, that's a great point, Garth. And I think the same at 3M, right? So for most of our countries, English is the required language. So yeah, as you're working with teams where English is, you know, the person's second language, it may take longer. It may take a little bit more patience, asking questions in different ways to make sure that we're both understanding both the question and the answer. So very, very good point.
Yeah. And sometimes a little language goes a long ways. You know, French, the French get a bad rap for being rude, but the reality in most cases is they just prefer to speak French. And if you lead with a little bit of French in your opening interactions and then pivot to saying, do you speak English? The answer is almost always going to be yes, and you'll have a delightful conversation. And I'm sure that's true of a lot of other cultures.
I actually have two circumstances where it was a benefit and where I wish I had learned a second language. Now, being in high school in the mid 80s, it wasn't a requirement at that time. Graduating from college in the early 90s, again, it wasn't a requirement at that time. So I didn't learn a second language. And as work expanded at our firm, we actually opened up some regional offices in California out on the West Coast. And I was out on the West Coast for quite a few years doing work. And it would have been a benefit working on construction projects out there where 80%, pretty close to 80% of the workforce has a Spanish background. And fortunately, I had an architect that I was working with that helped me out, but it would definitely would have made it smoother. The other part of it is we do have an office out there, and we had some change of leadership at that particular office, and we needed to have some leadership out there with a second language as a benefit. And we had a person step up that had that capability, and it really helped things along. So I would definitely push for people having that second language curriculum.
That's great.
Excellent. And one thing I just want to mention, if students are wanting to learn a language, I know we don't have any foreign language major programs here at Stout, but we do have a Spanish minor you can take advantage of, and it's a fantastic opportunity. And even if you learn, to an intermediate level, that at least a lot of times when you can even say a basic conversation, that can open the door, and it helps kind of smooth the path sometimes when you're making that effort. We also have a collaborative language program where there's a variety of other languages that you can learn. I don't have a list in front of me, but I believe there's Arabic, I want to say Chinese. I don't want to get them all correct, so I'm not going to list all of them. There's an applied foreign language minor as well to take advantage of. So highly encourage you to look into those. Excellent. The next question is, if you were interviewing a candidate for your company and a study abroad experience was listed on their resume, would it pique your interest, and or would it be an additional consideration when deciding to hire between two equivalent candidates?
Yes. Yes to all of those questions, I think. I'm happy to go first here, because this one I've got a pretty positive reaction to. If I'm looking at two candidates for one spot who are otherwise comparable, having international study experience would absolutely pique my interest in, and I would look at that as a positive differentiator. It would certainly be something I would ask about in an interview. And want to learn more about, and it offers a more interesting conversation about what did you learn while out of your comfort zone, and how were you able to succeed and react and figure things out while, again, I kind of think of that as out of your comfort zone. That would speak volumes, especially in our business. I work for a software company, an international software company, but our core business, our target market, is the broader hotel and travel business, which is inherently an international business. So putting those connections together would be very favorable when we're looking at candidates.
Now, Garth, I want to ask you, you're a study abroad alum. So,
I am.
And that's fantastic. Wisconsin-Stout was one of our programs at Stout. So can you speak to any particular experience you may have had when, in your career, when your study abroad experience was a benefit to you?
I can, and there was an example I was thinking of. It was in Scotland, and all through my college career in my hotel program, I was working at a hotel in Minneapolis, and I had returned home from my time in Scotland and went back to work at the hotel. And it was, I don't know, 4 months later after my return, I learned of a task force. I was working for Radisson in Minneapolis, and they were putting a corporate task force together to send, I don't know, it was probably about a half a dozen people from Radisson corporate locations back to Ireland, to Northern Ireland, to open a new Radisson resort in Northern Ireland. And that was very interesting to me, just returning home from Scotland. So I marched into the general manager's office and demanded a conversation to get myself onto that task force. And I portrayed myself as qualified to open a hotel in Northern Ireland because I had just studied abroad in Scotland and knew things about the United Kingdom. And it worked in the end. I got the job and I went and opened a brand new hotel in Northern Ireland. 60 days later, it was middle of May. I took all my finals early and flew to Belfast, and the owner's wife of the hotel picked me up, and I worked alongside a couple of other Americans, and we hired and trained local staff from Northern Ireland and what it means to work at Radisson and work in a hotel. It was the first Radisson in all of Ireland. And so teaching those cultural programs was really, really cool. It was a great experience I probably would not have gotten had it not been for my time studying abroad.
It seems that the opportunities just kind of come when you least expect it.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wasn't thinking I'm going to convert my study abroad experience to a new job within months. I had thinking like, well, I'll go to my senior year and I'll graduate and that'll be great. But it just kind of worked out that way. And it was right in line with what I was hoping to do with my career and what I did with my study abroad.
Mm-hmm. I just want to piggyback off that really quick, because I had a very similar experience when I studied abroad. I studied abroad for an academic year in Sevilla, Spain. And when I came back, I also went to North Dakota State University, and I came back for my senior year. And at that time, really no one was studying abroad up in Fargo, North Dakota. And so I was asked to do a presentation about my experience. And in that presentation, the assistant director of the international office asked, well, now that you have studied abroad, has that changed your view on what you want to do in the future? And I said, absolutely, it does. And I said, I don't know exactly yet what I want to do in the future, but I want to work with international people in some capacity. And I graduated, and within 2 months, I actually started as an international student advisor in the office, international office at North Dakota State. And I've been working in the international field for the last 20 years. So kind of a similar experience there. How about Jeff or Brett or Abby?
Yeah, I would say I would approach it from a point of view of how people think. I have a counterpart here at TKDA who's an architect, and he was able to study abroad in Italy. Being an architect, you're taking a look at all the famous sculptures and buildings in Rome. And he had a great opportunity to study abroad and really be creative with his designs. So I think if you take a look at an engineer and how we think, it's a very lineal way of thinking and solving problems, whereas an architect may be a little bit more creative. And I find people that we interview and have done study abroad are a little bit more creative. And it's really about problem solving when you're taking a look at the engineering and architectural industry. It's a great attribute to have.
Abby or Jeff?
Yeah, I can piggytail on some of that. I think Garth used the term pushing your comfort zone, and I think that's what Brett was getting, talked about as well. Is that, when you're in an interview and in your job, it's there's constant ambiguity. And so a study abroad, I mean, it pushes that comfort zone. It's, you're in a new place with new people you don't know, trying to just navigate it, right? And so in your job, there's always going to be ambiguity. There's always things that you need to figure out. There's critical thinking skills you need to apply. And I think having a study abroad program, shows that you can push those limits. You can work and navigate that ambiguity and the newness of things, because honestly, day in work, there is something new, and there's generally not a black and white answer to most things. It's, you need to go figure it out. And so I think, bridging those two things is really a very good positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try to sometimes will explain to students that when you're abroad, going to the grocery store is different. Going to the bank is different, or going to the post office is different. I remember when I was in Japan and going to the grocery store. I have a long story, but I won't tell the long story. But I remember I had no idea what I was buying, and I just needed food. And I just thought, well, when I get home, I'll figure out what this is. But I had a headache when I came home, and it was just kind of an overwhelming experience. But you're placed in so many situations when you're abroad, and where, like Jeff said, you're having to figure it out. You're having to figure out all this ambiguity, and that gives you the problem solving skills, and after a while, after you become more confident as well. I know there's several times throughout the years I feel like, oh gosh, I'm not sure if I can do this or not, but I think goodness, I got myself to Spain and Japan for a year, and I navigated all those different nuances, and so I can do this too. But Abby, do you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I really like what Garth said about the interview process. It definitely piques my interest if you studied abroad, and we're definitely going to talk about it in an interview because I want to hear about your experience. And I think, like Garth said, that adds a fun conversation. And a good interview is really when an interview feels more like a conversation than just strictly question and answer. If you have a good conversation with an employer like that, and the employer leaves with something memorable, you stick out then with the employer. So I think it definitely helps in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. This next question, I'm actually going to hand it over to Katie. Katie, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, you bet. So this question is for everybody. And the question is, does your organization offer a structured international internship experience for students? And there's kind of a couple parts too. We're going to make it complicated. If they do, what have been some of your students' experiences with that process? And if not, would you be open to having a conversation with an interested student about exploring this type of option?
Who wants to go first there? Jeff, I'll point at you.
Yeah, for structured internships, generally not. We haven't done international ones. We do have, and what we do have is specifically for supply chain, we have it's like a rotational type program for the first 2 years. And part of that is a potential international assignment for part of that first 2 years of a person's assignment. So not as an internship, but as part of a full-time type rotational job that is out there. Yep.
Great.
We're in a little bit of a similar spot. I think it was Katie. All right, good. So idea is my employer has a pretty structured internship program, but we kind of run it out of our Bloomington office in Minnesota. So we'll bring in students in almost every department. And in past years, we have had students interning simultaneously at some international office. We go to office about an hour outside of London. And we've had interns there, but I don't think they came from U.S. schools. I think they came from UK school. So we had kind of a simultaneous program going, but they came from local schools. There's no reason we couldn't. It's just most employers probably don't think of it that way. The expense of getting an intern there, housing them there, feeding them there. The value proposition gets a little bit out of balance quick if you're depending what that internship or the value of the work product is.
Yep, Heartland also does not offer an international internship experience. We aren't an international company, so we're just throughout the Midwest. The farthest we'd have is Omaha, Nebraska. So that's the farthest our internship
That's
program
another world,
would reach.
Abby. That's a totally different world.
Yeah, we are not an international company. We do have regional offices in Duluth, California, state of Washington, and Chicago. We do have a set intern program and mentorship program for our different architectural and engineering disciplines, but not internationally.
Now, Katie, I'm going to add my answer. I think we've had international students who are studying in the United States. So they came from somewhere else to study here and then stayed and worked here as an intern. So I was kind of flipping that question around. Do we ever have an example where Wisconsin students are studying abroad and then stay and do an internship, extend that travel?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, oh, sorry, Andrea, an interesting way to think about it. And I mean, this is really top of mind for us right now, as we just had an organization from just outside of Tokyo in Japan reach out to us about wanting to meet with some of our students. They're looking to hire 80 people. It's a game development and design company wanting to hire 80 students. So we're really excited to get them connected and in front of our students. I'm hopeful that, you know, COVID aside, even if that wasn't, you know, an issue right now, I'm hopeful that these types of opportunities can be talked about and explored more and kind of see what that looks like. And I mean, I think the idea of having students study abroad and then working with a company in that area where the student is to see if we can't build some relationships that way and offer up some experiences while they're over there as part of the study abroad program.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add before we go into questions with students?
I worked in a pub in Scotland when I was there for cash, for beer. Does that count as an internship?
Absolutely, that's a big culture in the pubs there.
There you go.
Pub culture.
I was paid drink coupons. That's not a lie.
I think one thing to add, and I'm sure that cost is obviously a factor. Personally, it's like, if you're thinking about doing it or considering doing it, do it, because you will work for a long time, and it gets harder as you get older, I think, to do an international type assignment or be able to go on a study abroad. So as you get more things in life thrown at you, a mortgage and kids in school and everything else, it becomes a lot more difficult. So you'll make plenty of money over the course of your career, and I think you'll really look back and wish you would have done it. I know I haven't done it, and I do wish that I did.
There's a guy on my team who decided we're all working remotely, right? And so the current trend in travel is you can work remotely anywhere. You don't have to work from home. So a guy on my team is single, no kids, no pets, and he is working remotely from a condo in Puerto Vallarta. He's in Mexico for the month of February.
Okay.
And I'm like, dang it, I would have gone in a heartbeat, but house, kids, pets, all kinds of things. So that's out.
Well, I think this really shows that, it doesn't matter where you are. It can be in a small town in Wisconsin or somewhere in Minnesota, somewhere in your career, you're going to come across working with international people, and whether it be through a Zoom meeting or having the opportunity to go there directly. There's a lot of different ways to gain soft skills. Study abroad is only one of them, but it's a significant aspect and something significant to really think about. Something that Jeff said was, there's actually a statistic out there. We're very happy that there is data on this now. And actually, students who study abroad typically earn 17% higher than those who have not studied abroad. So you can take that little extra earnings that you're planning to get in the future and invest in your future now and study abroad while you're in college. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions from students or anyone who is here on the call. Feel free to either place your video on. We love to see people right now since we're all working virtually, or if you feel more comfortable placing any questions in the chat box, we'll be happy to answer them.
While we're waiting for a question to come in, Andrea, I was just going to kind of volunteer a closing thought, which was, the soft skills we've been talking about, I think we all agree are important, but there's not always like a direct, here's the class you sign up for to get soft skills. they're going to kind of come and occur naturally, and you won't even realize necessarily that you're gaining soft skills. But putting yourself in a position to gain them through experience is I think the essence of an international study abroad. So kind of being willing to try, being willing to learn, and be willing to fail, and going through that process, I think you'll emerge with some soft skills that you don't even necessarily realize you're gaining in that time. But I promise you'll come out better.
I love that. That makes me think of planned happenstance, right? The more you do, the more situations you put yourself into, things are going to happen, opportunities are going to come your way, you're going to gain skills that way. So I definitely think absolutely everything students do is an opportunity to learn a skill or a different skill set that can be applied lots of places.
Yeah, one of the things we talk about, everyone talks about ROI. What's the ROI? The return on investment, and that typically the context is the money you spend. But I talk about something different with my team, and we talk about return on collisions. And it was an idea that the founder of Zappos in Las Vegas had propagated. But the return on collisions, putting yourself in a position where you're going to actually interact with people, and the value and the takeaways and the learning you'll get from that. Maybe it's business related, maybe it's personal related or skill related, but that idea of putting yourself, again, outside your comfort zone, putting yourself in front of people and forcing collisions to occur, a really cool idea.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Garth. All right. Are there any questions?
We haven't got any questions. Any other questions? And if you write them in the chat box, well, Andrew can just read them. Oh, there's DL's got his hand up.
All right, Dylan. Yeah, do you want to go ahead, Dylan?
You're on mute, Dylan. Dylan, you're on mute.
See if I can unmute him.
There we go. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned your study abroad in Spain, and that just sounded kind of interesting. I was fortunate to, like my parents and I went there for graduation like 2 years ago. So I guess what was like your favorite like part about being in Spain? We were like all over like the north central part of it and into Portugal and stuff for a few weeks. So like what did you like most about it?
Goodness, there were so many things. Sevilla is in southern Spain, in the province of Andalusia, and a lot of times people don't go down to southern Spain because it's too far. They usually go to Barcelona or Madrid. And so in southern Spain, there were fewer tourists down there, which was really nice. Fewer people spoke English. I mean, this was nearly 30 years ago. And so more people maybe speak English now, but in the south, they really keep their culture. You see, there's a lot of flamenca. I remember going to a park on a regular Friday or Saturday night, and men and women were dancing. They're doing just right in the park, and that's very traditional Spanish. And they were just, college-age students doing that. And it's a beautiful culture. Spanish was my major in college, and when I studied it for probably 10 years before I went there. I thought I knew the language, and I got there, and I was a disaster for about 2 months, or maybe actually my friends say that a semester, because they had a very strong lisp in southern Spain, or Spain in general, and I really had to get used to that. But after a while, I lived with the host family, which was very helpful, and it really got me to force me to speak the Spanish language. And after about 2 months, they say Spanish when you start dreaming in Spanish, and that actually happened. About 2 months after I was there, I started dreaming in Spanish. well, I can say it was the most profound experience of my life, which is why I do what I do today. I strongly believe in it. I love talking about it every day. I'm very passionate about it. I just wish, I wish it was available for every student, or can just experience it just once. I could go on and on, but it was definitely profound. And not to mention the food, the wine, the architecture, the cobblestones. It was all amazing. And the people are beautiful and kind. And, I've been back a few times since. And, you just go into a sidewalk cafe and you're able to just talk with the waiters and the waitresses. And, they're just very friendly people. And I think I want to, sometimes I think, when I mentioned to students is, I know it's a lot of times there's this fear to go abroad. And it's really, I remember my mom actually gave me advice before I went to Spain. It's real simple, but it helped me. And she said, just remember, you're never lost. You're just somewhere you've never been before. And there were a lot of times I got lost when I was over there. And I remember just sitting down on a park bench sometimes, trying not to panic because, there's no GPS or anything. And I just remember thinking, the people here are not afraid because they're familiar with it. I'm just afraid of the unknown. So I just tell students that when you decide to study abroad, you're going to meet people right away the first days at your orientation. And everyone's in the same boat, everyone bonds together. And then from there, you just kind of branch out and meet more people from that country. So.
You said fear, Andrea, and I think you're right. It's a natural reaction, but fear is an emotion, and courage is a choice. So it's okay to say I'm fearful, but to overcome it and move forward, can take courage, and that's okay. Just go and do it because fear is a short-term problem in this kind of conversation around studying abroad, at least.
Absolutely. Good question, Dylan. Are there any other questions? Let's see the question. Do you know when this recording will be available? Yes, we're going to, it'll probably be tomorrow. Tomorrow or Friday, hopefully tomorrow, everything will be downloaded and uploaded. It'll be on our YouTube channel and also in the virtual study abroad fair platform in Canvas. If you have access to Canvas, then it'll be in the, if you go to the watch recorded videos section, it'll be there as well. Well, if there aren't any other questions, and certainly we'll go into a little wrap up here, but if anyone thinks of something along the way, please feel free to place them in the chat box and we can circle back to those. But Katie, do you want to kind of kick off our wrap up?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, we just kind of wanted to end talking about how I think it's important to kind of take some time before you go abroad and then take some time when you come back. So in career services for our cooperative education and internship program, we have what a lot of you probably know as our pre-work seminar. And there you take some time to set some goals for your experience that you're going to go participate in. And think about what it is you want to learn. And I think would be extremely valuable to do the exact same thing before you go abroad. Like, yes, you're going to be putting yourself into situations and you're going to be learning things that you maybe aren't aware of or that you weren't cognizantly trying to learn. But think about why are you doing this experience? How could this potentially be beneficial to you? Kind of thinking about that before you go, because then maybe you'll put yourself in some more of those situations where you can get some more of those skills and get some of that knowledge. I think then as well, having the opportunity to debrief when you get back. I mean, Andrea talking about how it was like such a profound experience for her. And it can be a lot to unpack, you know, based on what your experience was. So taking the time to come back and find somebody to chat with about it, kind of reflect on what it is you were hoping to get out of the experience. And then coming from, you know, directly from the career services side, I mean, how are you going to talk about these? All of our panelists here tonight said, yes, if we see that on our resume, we're going to ask about it. Are you prepared to talk about it? What is it that you want that recruiter to know about what you learned in that experience? Being able to articulate what that looked like is going to make you stand out huge. I mean, we want you to articulate any of the skills that you've gained from any of your experiences, but again, especially such a profound experience, I'm going to keep using that word, as studying abroad and really kind of pushing your limits and getting yourself out there. If you can really clearly explain what it is you gained from that, and then what it is that you can now bring and have how it's added value to you as a potential employee. I think that's really going to impress a lot of the recruiters and people you're interviewing with.
Yeah, and if you are accepted to go on a study abroad program, then we'll have you go through a pre-departure orientation. And during that time, we'll have someone from Career Services come and talk with you about things you should be thinking about when you're going abroad, and just get you prepared for that experience. And then when you come back, we'll do a post study abroad where you can learn how to write about it on your resume and how to talk about it in an interview. I think this is key. You know, it's so helpful. I did not have these tools or resources when I came home, and I had no idea how to talk about it. I said, yeah, I had an amazing time, but how do you pack 9 months into a 2-minute elevator speech? So it's those things that's important to practice. So I highly encourage you, you know, to go through that process if you study abroad.
And I would say too, you know, if maybe you've already studied abroad and you are like, oh no, like I didn't do this, come into Career Services. We will help you figure out what it should look like on your resume, the types of things you should talk about. We're always here for you when, you know, before you go and for when you come back.
Absolutely. And Garth, actually, there's something in the chat box. It says, someone said, thank you all for this wonderful presentation. I got so into this, I forgot I was looking for the answer to the scavenger hunt. I forgot too.
I did too. Dang it. Hang on. Hang on.
Did you travel to Europe at all at some point after?
Yes. Hang on. So one of the things that I thought was interesting, I had a good friend of mine that during the same time that I was studying in Scotland, one of my best friends from high school had a parent who worked at 3M and was able to actually facilitate my friend getting an internship. We talked about international internships. My friend ended up getting an internship at a 3M location in Germany. And we were able to kind of connect during my travel, and he got some time off when we were traveled all over Europe. But I was kind of fun because I flew from Edinburgh into Dusseldorf, Germany, and connected with him, and we backpacked and trained all over Central Europe. But that Germany is my secret code word for the day.
There you go. Thank you. Excellent. We do have a question here. Are most study abroad experiences general education based? I have been interested in study abroad, but I am almost done with my gen eds and into my more detailed courses. So we have study abroad programs for all majors. On our website at uw-stout.studioabroad.com, I can put it in the chat box. There's a variety of ways you can search for programs, and one of them is you can search by major. So you just go click search by major, and boom, everything is pre-sorted for you. And you feel free to make an appointment with me. I can help sort out your options for you. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions at the moment. I'm just going to put up one more slide here. And I'd really like to thank the employers for joining us this evening. You've added a great aspect to this, and I can't thank you enough. If you have any further questions, if students have any further questions after this evening, you can go into the Canvas virtual platform and click on Ask an Advisor. There's an advisor who can help you out, or you can schedule a virtual appointment via the tiny URL UW-Stout OIE bookings, or email studyabroad@uwstout.edu. And also with that, I just want to place a link in the chat box for our next session. If you thought you would like to study in Cuba, there's a program going in January to Cuba, and you can click on that link there and join our next session that begins at 6:30. So thank you everyone again. Thank you to our employers. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you to Katie for collaborating on this presentation tonight. You've added a great aspect to our study abroad fair.
If you need any employer liaisons to go to Cuba next January, let me know.
Yeah.
Just might. Garth, actually, just really quick, did you say are you guys hiring?
I just hired an intern.
Okay.
For my team in sales for the summer. Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
All right, great. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording, but thank you again for being here this evening.